created to have some fun together, sharing and singing. So, join and enjoy.
Our love for opera brings us together. Thanks for being with us in this trip.
So here we are for another episode of the dissection season, and I think you may find that we have a very nice noise in the background because we are recording this episode in the outdoors. Also, if you saw the videos, because I also made two very short videos that you can find on YouTube, me trying to find a place where I could sit and actually record, because that was a promise or my intention from several weeks or maybe a couple of months ago, that once the rains arrived and the river would flow again, I wanted to record an episode here. I was explaining also that I am more of an outdoors person, so that's why, even if it is of course less comfortable, one has to deal with mosquitoes, ants. There are even some flies around here, but there are plenty of birds, and watching the river flow, and maybe some people passing by makes it. There are butterflies as well. Makes the whole experience much better for me. Hopefully, or I hope that for you, the birds singing in the background that sound really doesn't bother you. It's really nice place to stay for a Sunday. It's still morning, and start the recording. So let's get to it. So today we are talking about, again, since this is the dissection season, where we are addressing the most popular opera arias, very well known by everybody, whether you are involved in opera or not. This is the time to talk about the super famous Barbiere di Siviglia, and we are talking about the Figaro because we already have with Katia the episode for Una Voce Poco Fa, which, by the way, was also a very hilarious episode that we recorded and that you can find also in the series. But it is not only Rosina in Una Voce Poco Fa, who has a very well known piece of music, but it is also Il Barbiere, who is under the name of Figaro. It is the Figaro who, in fact, Il Barbiere gives the name to the opera, because he's what I have called, and if you have read or you want to go to the posts in Ko-fi, link you can find in the description of the episode, you can find a post of the characters that I call, that are sort of catalyzers, because without them nothing would happen. The actual history would never take place, and that is the case for Figaro, because without Figaro, who will introduce himself as the factotum, the one who does and can do everything in town, is who actually runs the plot and works his way to help Il Conte d'Almaviva. But of course, we also have Rosina, who is doing things herself, her way. That was the other episode. But at the end, we will always have Il Figaro, and people know Il Figaro because of the very, very well known tune, the tra la 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 la. And this will also be the case because we have mentioned in other episodes that it happens with some arias. This is not only an introduction or a presentation aria where the character introduces himself, what he does, what's his name, what are the reasons he's known, what is his purpose in the story or in life or whatever. This is not only an introduction or presentation aria, but also it is one of the melodies that you can keep in your mind, even if you don't speak Italian, even if you don't know what Il Barbiere is about, even if you don't know the words, because we made the exercise with La Donna Mobile, and we can do the same exercise, and we also made the same exercise with Carmen, with La Banera, where it doesn't matter what syllable or what consonant and vowel you put together, you can always get away with the whole melody without putting any words into that. If you recall, when we talked about Carmen, it was la 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 la, and you can get away with La Banera just like that. And we also provided the example of La Donna Mobile. La, 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 la. So that's going to be the case for our friend Il Figaro, which, by the way, Maestro Rossini, the composer of this opera, at the beginning didn't really give him words. He just gave him these syllables: la 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 lera, la 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 lera, la ran la la, la ran la la, la 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 la. La 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 la. So as you can see, this is just the introductory part, and we got away with it with just the same phoneme, the same syllable. That's what proves my initial point that these spectacular, very well-known melodies are so popular and are so easy to recall for people that you don't need any more understanding of music. You don't need to be a person who likes classical music or a person who knows about opera. You just need to be open to listen to music, and the magic of Maestro Rossini will work its way out. So, but now, before we jump into the details of Largo al factotum della città, let's go a little back to Maestro Rossini, because I think it is very interesting to mention for you that it is already over 200 years that this opera was composed. It may sound like an easy, quick number, but just think of what has happened in the history of human mankind for the past 200 years. Just to name a couple of them, we have the French Revolution hadn't even happened. So no French Revolution, no country in Latin America was independent already. In fact, the wars for their independences, mostly from Spain and Portugal lately, could happen later. So most of this continent was already subject to the crowns of Europe. We hadn't had most of the inventions that we know now. And so this was a very, very different world, and this was the world where Maestro Rossini lived, and even over 200 years after the composition of this Il Barbiere di Siviglia, people still love it. Just to prove how great his composition was, that even after over 200 years, it is still one of the greatest favorites of all times. But now, talking a little more about our character of interest today, um, Il Figaro. Il Figaro is a baritone. If you're, I think you're already familiar with the tessituras for opera singing. So the baritone is, let's say that it is the voice that stands in the middle, because the tenor voice is the higher in terms of notes, the higher voice, the bass, of course, as the name itself calls for it, is for the lower register, and the baritone is comfortable in the middle of both registers, not as high as the tenor, but not as low as the bass. But there are some important characteristics that we need to mention around the baritone for Il Barbiere di Siviglia and also for all the other compositions by Maestro Rossini. And the thing around these baritones is that, opposed maybe to the baritones that you know that could be able to sing maybe Puccini with long legato, sustained, beautiful voice, very homogeneous, beautiful voice, good stamina to overcome the heavy orchestration of Maestro Puccini, or a much heavier baritone, as it could be the case for singing maybe Maestro Verdi, or maybe for singing Verismo, or any other type of tenor, like a Wagnerian tenor. That wouldn't be the case for the baritone. I mentioned tenor, sorry for that. I meant baritone. Not that kind of baritone. The baritone that could be able to sing Il Barbiere di Siviglia, and I don't want to be disrespectful with the baritones, but it is really not a great baritone needed for this role. I don't mean that it will be a mediocre baritone, but what I mean is that for the baritone here, he doesn't need powerful, extensive high notes or powerful, extensive low notes or incredible ornamentation or incredible stamina in the voice to also overcome the orchestra. None of that. But on the other hand, what you will need, and you will notice that you will need a baritone that has a very good speaking technique, a very good reading technique, and that can sing very, very, very fast because he basically speeds run all or most of the area. Also, he has to be something that is not easy to be found in many opera singers, and that is that he has to be a naturally, I would say, funny or amusing guy because he carries on his back most of the plot of the story. And so one is not to detest Figaro. One is to love Figaro, and the only way you're going to love him is if you find, of course, a lovely guy doing the job, singing the role. So, what happens many times is that baritones who usually engage in other roles in other repertoire, who hardly ever sing Rossini, think, well, if I can sing Scarpia, I can sing Rossini, and that could not be completely true because they may fall in several problems. One of them is the intention. When I said that you don't need a super powerful baritone, of course, a super powerful baritone with the right intention and understanding of the music will do. But don't think of a Wagnerian baritone singing Largo, factotum largo, like that, like all the time with a heavy voice, because that will not work. If you notice, when the baritone opens his part, he has to be funny and needs to have a very interesting opening phrase. Largo al factotum della città largo. The baritone needs to be very intelligent at understanding what syllables or what notes he's going to play with, because except for a couple of notes which we might think are demanding for the baritone tessitura, the truth is that the rest is very mostly very comfortable for the baritone. So for instance, in the opening of largo al factotum della città largo, if he does it plainly, simple, even boring, people will not be attracted to the phrase. So he has to think, the baritone has to think, how do I do it so that it works? Largo al factotum della città, largo, largo, largo. There is also an accent provided by Maestro Rossini in Largo, but not only that, the Maestro Rossini has provided some syllables that need either a crescendo, diminuendo, or that it may be staccato or any other notation, but besides all of that, the baritone needs to build the role himself. And to build his role, the role himself, he needs to understand very very well not only the plot of the, well, that in the background it's an airplane, so I think I'm going to pause for a second. So sorry for that, but yeah, as I was saying at the beginning, recording at the outdoors is can have its challenges, and I had forgotten that we are not so far from the airport at the Bahía de Banderas, so it was just a plane that took the path close to the river. So going back to what I was telling you, the baritone needs to be very intelligent, not only in understanding the the notes or the comments by Maestro Rossini, but understanding as well how he wants to build the character himself, because it is in the details that we are going to fall in love for Figaro. as I was just sharing, he has to think in his opening phrase, largo el factotum de la chita, largo. How is going to do largo, largo? He needs to think, how do I play with that largo, largo, largo? So whatever he thinks works better for himself is what he needs to do in working his all his way throughout the whole area. He opened with la 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 largo al factotum de la città largo la 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 la. These are only the very few times where the baritone is requested to go to his upper register, but let me give you a word of caution here, and maybe if you have already watched the episode that I have with Katya on the spectacular singing, the first episode for season 8, where we address the very well known Meinhard Marquis from the Fledermaus, and we refer to the fact that maybe for a beginner singer, he could think, oh, it is a high note, everything is a head position. If it is a low note, then it is a chest note, and just like that. And it can be tricky because, as we were sharing in that program, if you think like that, maybe something is not going to work, and mainly because imagine that you come in la 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 la. Imagine that you have already reached the high note and you forget about all the chest support that you need to provide to this note, and so you just go for the head voice. But this note is not. The purpose of this note is not for the baritone to show that he has a high note. The purpose of this note is to provide intention to call the attention of people listening to the Figaro. So while he's saying la 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 la, when he does that, what he's doing is calling the attention of people, like, hey people, look at me, la 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 la, presto bottega che l'alba è già presto. And after his high note, where he has, where we think he may be calling the attention, then he has a very fast-paced phrase that says, "Presto bottega que el alba es ya presto." There is the following phrase, which also needs to be sung very playfully. What the baritone chooses to do here is mainly an option of how he wants to handle the role. Because, as I was just sharing with you, if he adds way too much chest voice, he will sound way too heavy. But if he plays only with the light head voice, it may sound exactly like that, like very light. So what would be the right mix between the chest and the head voice? Too light because you want, that's the color that you want to provide to the character, or maybe chest because you want it to sound heavier. But you also want to make sure that the sound that you're providing to the character makes sense to the personality that he actually has. So if you do it quickly, presto bottega que el alba ya presto. If he does it playfully with the right mix, people will be attracted to the phrase. But I think that if he makes it too heavy, people may think that he's falling into problem, or that this is not the Figaro that people want to see. Presto bottega que el alba ya presto. And also because I also made it a little slower, because sometimes when baritones, I was sharing that one of the characteristics needed to sing Il Figaro is that you need a baritone who can sing very quickly. Usually heavier voices have problems with the speed, with the pace of this aria. So they usually ask, or they may ask the orchestra director to slow it down a little, because they can say, presto bottega que el alba ya presto. They may go slower. Presto bottega que el alba ya presto. And there is also, as I was sharing with you, there are certain syllables that Maestro Rossini had emphasized for us. He had emphasized largo, and now he's not that high, but presto. La 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 la. But notice la 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 la. Again, my thoughts are that this doesn't need to be full powerful voice because if the baritone gets tired too soon, he will have trouble in reaching the end of the aria because we are still very, very far from reaching the end. So, how has let's very briefly summarize how far we have come. We have come la 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 la. Then when he says largo al factotum de la hachita largo la 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 presto bottega che l'alba ya presto la 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 la. If you see, is this in fact very fast paced? Only I have stopped way too much to provide explanations and thoughts on part of it, but I will cut them up because if I keep on like this, it will take us 2 hours to finish this episode, and that is way too much. Then the next phrase is che vivere, che bel piacere per un barbiere di qualità. Uh, there are many words here that I am not going to stop explaining all of them or translating them into English because, as it is usually the case, since people know the main melody of the aria, people are waiting for the Figaro to reach the part that everybody knows. So what it is in the minds of people is music, 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 singing, 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 whatever, 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 and the part I know. And then more music, 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 a high note, and we are all happy. So we are in the part of music, 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 singing, 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 words, words, words that many people don't pay attention to. Ah, Ah, che bel vivere, che bel piacere per un barbiere di qualità, di qualità. I also wanted to mention here that even though I was saying that there are not many ornaments written by Maestro Rossini for this role, there are many baritones that add notes or that add ornaments themselves because they think it may make sense. They're just because they can. So, for instance, in this part where it says "che bel piacere," "che bel piacere," that is a part that is not written, but that is a part that is something that some baritones usually add here. There are some others that can add those ornaments or those more virtuosistic parts at the end. But for the initial, this is what some of them do. So he has just said che bel piacere per un barbiere di qualità, di qualità. Also remember that the music is moving, and if you know Rossini, you know that he's with the orchestra at super high full speed mode. So the orchestra is, if not chasing, is so close to the voice of the singer that if he commits a mistake at breathing, for example, per un barbiere di qualità, it has to be continuous. It is just a small plus. Di qualità, di qualità, tarararan, tarararan. And even though there are 2 bars and a half between di qualità, bravo Figaro, bravo bravissimo, bravo. Bravo Figaro, bravo bravissimo, bravo. Not as fast as I had suggested. Bravo Figaro, bravo bravissimo, bravo. Notice that there is not much more content in the expression of bravo Figaro, bravo bravissimo, bravo. It is just the way this was constructed by Maestro Rossini. La 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 la. Again, going for a bright note, because if you also notice the way Maestro Rossini is composing or building the aria is these parts words la 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 la, then adds this la 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 la, and then a high note la 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 la, adding or putting some control la 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 la, and then again text and context. La, 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 la. Again, a high note, and then that's the way this aria is basically built. Just before we reach the fastest part of the aria. So let's try to go very quickly through it because it's really lots of words. Fortunatissimo per verità, bravo. La 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 la. Fortunatissimo per verità. Fortunatissimo per verità. La 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 la. And this could be consider in a way as the first part of the aria, the first introductory part, where we have seen many times la 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 fortunatissimo per verità, fortunatissimo per verità. Something that I also wanted to mention and that we have mentioned as well in previous episodes is that Maestro Rossini has, or part of his style of composition is the frequent repetition of the same phrases. So you may find the singer repeating over and over and over and over again the same phrase. So, of course, when there are many repetitions, and Maestro Rossini made some variations so that it doesn't mean that predictable or monotonous, but it is also a challenge for the singer because he also has to think on how to make this small change here, that small change there, so again to reinforce that it doesn't sound monotonous. That will be, I think that also needs to be mentioned now. So, as we reach the following part, pronto a far tutto, l'anno il giorno sempre d'intorno, ingero sta, miglior cucagna per un barbiere, vita più nobile non si dà. Also, if you remember the episode that we had with Katia, we also mentioned that for people who speak Italian, it is actually singing. They are just speaking, but it actually already sounds like speaking, and that is the case for this part. Because pronto a far tutto l'anno il giorno, sempre d'intorno, ingero sta, miglior cucagna per un barbiere, vita più nobile non si dà. La 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 lera, la 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 lera, la 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 lera, la 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 la. This part, even though I basically spoke it, that's pretty much the melody that comes sung because there is around a third of difference in the notes that come right after, which means it's basically speaking because we basically speak in our natural tone and we tend to go a little higher to emphasize something if we want to emphasize it with a high, but sometimes we can also emphasize it with a low, and that usually is a third, and that is pretty much what Maestro Rossini did in this part. A little higher, of course, because it's singing, but that is the basic idea. So that's what he did with Pronto a far tutto la notte il giorno sempre d'intorno ingero sta miglior cucagna per un barbiere vita più nobile non si dà la 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 lera la 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 lera la 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 la. So he after that rassegna pettine lancete forbici al mio comando tutto qui sta lancete forbici al mio comando and you see this is what I call this one a tongue twister because it is very easy to mess up with the syllables. So let's give it a second try. Hopefully I won't mess up with the words. Rassegna pettine lancete forbici al mio comando tutto qui sta lancete forbici lancette forbici al mio comando tutto qui sta. Ve la risorsa poi del mestiere con la donetta, col cavaliere, con la donetta, la 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 la, la col cavaliere, la 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 la, la la la. And for instance, just to provide another example that I was telling you, for instance, we have after col cavaliere, la 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 la. When you go for the la la la, the last la is as long as the previous one, so it is la la la. Ah, que bel vivere. But there is a whole bar of pause in the singing and half of the bar before, so it could be a significant amount of silencing. La la la. But what is usually done is that instead of keeping the duration of the third la, la, the baritone would keep it for longer, maybe for over a bar, so that you immediately tie it to the next phrase. So, la, 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 che bel vivere, che bel piacere, per un barbiere di qualità, tra la 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 la. So if you notice, there is, for instance, this small example, la, che bel vivere, immediately tied because it works, for many baritones, it works. Tutti mi chiedono, tutti mi vogliono, donne e ragazzi, vecchie fanciulle, qua la parrucca, presto la barba, quella sanguigna, presto il biglietto, tutti mi chiedono, tutti mi vogliono, tutti mi chiedono, tutti mi vogliono, qua la parrucca, presto la barba, presto il biglietto, Figaro, 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 Figaro. This is the part exactly that I was telling you that it's the one that people are waiting for. Nobody really cares about the tutti mi chiedono, tutti mi vogliono, donne e ragazzi, vecchie fanciulle, qua la parrucca, presto la barba, quella sanguigna, presto il biglietto, tutti mi chiedono, tutti mi vogliono, tutti mi chiedono, tutti mi vogliono, qua la parrucca, presto la barba, presto il biglietto. People don't care about that. What people care is exactly the same phrase. And as such comes again another opportunity for the baritone to decide how he wants to handle it. Because this is where many baritones can be creative. They know that people are expecting for the Figaro, 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 Figaro. So what many, or well, maybe not many, but what several baritones do here is that they may even play with the falsetto in one of these repetitions of Figaro, 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 Figaro. Of course, I cannot do falsetto, but for baritones who can, you may recognize that, because what they are, or what Il Barbiere tries, what Figaro tries to say here is that the 4, 2, 4, 6, the 6 times he repeats Figaro is not that he is repeating it to himself. He's trying to show us that there are many, many, many people calling his name. So when he says Figaro, means one people is calling me again. Figaro, the second person is calling me. Figaro, Figaro, again. Two more people calling me. Figaro, Figaro, two more people calling me. Figaro, 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 Figaro. So a number of around 10 or more people are calling me Figaro, 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 Figaro. That's exactly what this part means, and that's why many baritones choose to go for a falsetto in this part. So as the singer can play with this whole part, they can decide whether to keep it for longer, whether to add that falsetto, or whether to add anything else they desire, because this part is just to exemplify, look how many people are looking for me, because now he says ahimè, che furia, ahimè, che folla, uno alla volta, per carità, per carità, per carità, uno alla volta, uno alla volta, uno alla volta, per carità. Because exactly after those many people calling me Figaro, 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 ahimè, oh my God, oh my God. So this clamor, so many people, just one person at a time, please, 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 just one at a time. I cannot take care of so many people at the same time. That's what Figaro is telling us. There is so many people looking for me that please, please stop. Uno alla volta, uno alla volta, per carità. Figaro, son qua. Hey, Figaro, son qua. Again, making reference that he's called by many people when he says Figaro. Again, giving us the example that there is another person looking for him, Figaro, and he replies, son qua, I'm here. Hey, Figaro, again, another person looking for him, son qua, again, I'm here. Figaro qua, Figaro là, Figaro qua, Figaro là, Figaro su, Figaro giù, Figaro su, Figaro giù. Pronto, prontissimo, sono come il fulmine, sono il factotum della città, della città, della città, della città, della città. And this is about to get more accelerated. But again, Figaro qua, Figaro là, Figaro co, Figaro qua, son qua. The last time he said son qua, I'm here, Figaro here, Figaro there, Figaro here, Figaro there, Figaro upstairs, Figaro downstairs, Figaro stay, Figaro go. Pronto, prontissimo, go, 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 very, very, very quickly. Pronto, prontissimo, son come il fulmine, sono il factotum della città. della città, tan 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 ran tan tan. That's what the music will play, and this is what I was telling you, the super fast part that people like to hear, even if nobody understands anything. It is so fast that people like to listen to it. Ah, bravo Figaro, bravo bravissimo, ah, bravo Figaro, bravo bravissimo, a te fortuna, a te fortuna non mancherà. La 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 la. A te fortuna, a te fortuna, a te fortuna non mancherà. Sono il factotum della città, sono il factotum della città, della città, della città. Before he reaches his final high note, I wanted to make a mention to something here because I was telling you that this is required baritone that can speak and moreover sing very very fast, and it is because of parts like this. If he doesn't have a good fast diction, he will easily fall in trouble in this part. A bravo Figaro, bravo bravissimo, a bravo Figaro, bravo bravissimo, a te fortuna, a te fortuna, a te fortuna non mancherà. Laran la laran la laran la laran la laran la laran la laran laran. A te fortuna, a te fortuna, a te fortuna non mancherà. Sono il factotum della città, sono il factotum della città, della città, della. And not only that he can speak and sing fast, but also that he has a very good breath or diaphragm control. Because if you are unable to manage your breath and you have to cut the phrase in the middle, people will notice because this is the part where you are supposed to be singing fast. But if in the part where you are supposed to be singing fast, people notice that you make a pause to take a breath, you will not only impact the overall result of this passage, but also you will impact the image that people have of you as a singer, because people will say, well, he doesn't have enough breath, this was too much for him, he wasn't ready for it. And many people can be so cruel when qualifying a singer. So for instance, abra Figaro, bravissimo, abra Figaro, bravissimo, a te fortuna, a te fortuna, a te fortuna non mancherà. There is a small pause that Maestro Rossini put here, and you have the pause just there. Non mancherà, small pause, la 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 la, a te fortuna, a te fortuna, a te fortuna, non mancherà. There is no pause after non mancherà, but if you take a slight piece of time in mancherà, breathe, sono il factotum della città, because let me do it the other way around. Let me show you how it could sound if people notice that you are breathing. Ah, bravo Figaro, bravissimo, ah, bravo Figaro, bravo bravissimo, a te fortuna, a te fortuna, a te fortuna, non mancherà. La 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 la. A te fortuna, a te fortuna, a te fortuna non mancherà. Sono il factotum. You know, I also try to make you notice the breathing in the microphone, which of course is horrible and it even hurts the lungs. But just to exemplify how weird it may sound when the singer is in a rush trying to deal with it, because we think that singers have a never-ending breath, and that is not true. It is just that you have to be intelligent in finding where you want to breathe. So after this very fast part of bravo bravissimo, bravo Figaro, bravo bravissimo, a te fortuna, a te fortuna, a te fortuna non mancherà, and the la 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 la, I was telling you that he's about to reach the high note that everybody is expecting. Just consider that he comes from the fastest part, and even though they are not ornaments, he's continuously singing. So you as a singer or you as a listener have to be very careful on how you want to approach this part, because if you already arrived too tired for this part, most likely the final note will not be as bright as you were planning, because you are already tired. But you also need to ask yourself, how is it that you want to plan ahead for that high note? You want a long, powerful note, or you just want one that is rhythmically placed and correctly making sense in the context of the rest of the area? What would be your choice? Of course, if you have an excellent breathing technique and a powerful voice, and you are in the good conditions for it, you would go for a high, powerful, bright super long note. But if you don't have all that characteristics in your voice, maybe you would go for a much shorter, less powerful, but very, very nice positions, and that fully makes sense with the rest of the interpretation. Because important here is that the complete aria makes sense, not that everything is a mess and that just the final note is good. So this final part is sono il factotum della città. Notice that it is continuous. Della città. Usually, baritones add a pause. Of course, the orchestra director is usually agrees because you come from della città, della città, della città, della città. Personally, I think that a super long città doesn't really make sense. I think that a less powerful, a less long note, maybe just a couple of seconds, but bright in sense of joy, bright in sense of happiness, bright in sense of providing who Figaro is what really belongs here. Because if you come from della città, della città, della città, della città, I don't know. For me, it sounds artificial. And also, by the way, there is no high note in Chita. There is no high note written for the baritone here. There is no actual high long note. It has to end la Chita. It's weird because Chita. It sounds Chita. De la città. It's a very weird way of wrapping up the aria by Maestro Rossini, but that's how it is actually written. So I think it really makes more sense that singers transpolated de la città, and many baritones also after città, la 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 la, going on with the orchestra, la 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 la, wrapping up until the very last note. I think it also may make sense if you played a very playful. If you did a very playful Figaro, I really think it makes sense. But if your Figaro was way too serious, nobody's going to believe you when you want to play with the file la 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 la, because it really doesn't match the rest of the interpretation. But I think that, of course, it is usually very much easier to say how it has to be done in these 30 to 40 minutes that these episodes usually take. However, to work and to build a complete interpretation of a very well-known piece as this one may take, depending on the singer, weeks, months, and why not even years. So take that into account next time you listen to Il Figaro and ask yourself if maybe your singer even took a year to prepare for this role.
You can follow our channel for the latest updates and more content. Opera We Love Singing, in just one word. Link in the description of the episode.